Okay, get ready for a wild one. What if I told you that a single, seemingly ordinary real estate deal accidentally sold the entire world? I know, it sounds like something out of a movie, but this is presented as one man's unbelievable reality, where a simple contract allegedly transferred the sovereign rights of nearly every nation on Earth.
To even begin to understand how a claim like this is possible, we have to rewind the clock. Let's go back to the end of the Cold War. There's this incredible feeling of optimism in the air, right? It really felt like we were on the verge of a new, much more unified era.
And this huge geopolitical shift had some very real, on-the-ground consequences. With the Soviet threat basically gone, NATO troops started pulling out of Germany. All of a sudden, these huge military properties were just empty. And this created a really unique, and as we're about to find out, an incredibly strange opportunity.
And this is right where our story kicks off. Not with some grand conspiracy, but with a pretty simple idea from a 19-year-old who had absolutely no clue what he was about to step into.
So our protagonist, who we're just going to call the buyer, was actually a school dropout. His plan was super straightforward. He and his mom would become real estate agents. They were going to market the empty NATO officer apartments at the Kreisberg base and earn a commission. He described himself as totally wide-eyed, just completely unaware of how the world really works.
So, during negotiations, the buyer just casually suggests including a nearby property that was still being used by Dutch NATO forces. An official supposedly fires back, "That's not possible right now. We'd need an international treaty for that." And the buyer, not really getting the weight of it all, just says, "Then let's just make one." According to this story, that one naive comment put a giant red flag on him for intelligence agencies.
So he works for 3 years, unpaid, and just as a deal is about to finally close, the German Financial Authority, the OFD, pulls the rug out from under him. They say they can't work with real estate agents, so they give him this choice. Either you walk away with absolutely nothing for all your work, or instead of a commission, you take property of equal value. He's totally backed into a corner, so he agrees. Just like that, he's not an agent anymore. He's about to be an owner, and he's unknowingly stepping right into a historic trap. And so, on October 6, 1998, he signs the World Succession Deed 1400/98. Now, to him, it just looks like a standard real estate contract. But according to this whole narrative, it was actually a masterfully disguised document that did something way, way more profound. You see, the contract he signed wasn't just a simple sale. It was supposedly an act of state succession. Now, this is a real concept in international law, and it's all about the transfer of sovereignty itself, the fundamental right to govern a territory from one entity to another. So here's where we get to the hidden genius, or the trick, of the contract. It starts small, with just that one piece of land. But, and this is the crucial part, the deed included all the connected networks, telecom, internet, power, you name it, and it described them all as one single unit. And since those networks are global, well, the clause supposedly triggered a legal domino effect, expanding the sale to cover every single nation connected to them. The whole mechanism was apparently incredibly sophisticated. It was drafted by experts at Germany's OFD, and it used these treaty chains to bind all NATO states without them even knowing about it. There was this clever legal clause that swapped out German law for international law whenever possible. And it even, supposedly, transferred the ultimate legal jurisdiction over the entire contract to the buyer. A local deal had officially gone global.
But here's the twist. According to the story, Germany's plan was never to just give the world away. The plan was to use this unsuspecting buyer as a middleman to take it all back for themselves in one brilliant covert move.
So Germany starts leaning on the buyer to sign a second contract. This one would transfer the roads and all those super important networks back to the state, for free. They sold it to him as a way to avoid maintenance costs. He had no idea he was being asked to hand over the keys to the entire world, so he agreed.
But then, at the notary appointment, something absolutely stunning happened. The buyer is expecting this complex legal document to transfer the networks. Instead, he gets handed this simple one-page paper, and it doesn't transfer a thing to Germany. All it says is that he has fulfilled all his obligations and he's now free and clear. He signs it.
So what on earth just happened? Well, the buyer's conclusion is that the OFD official and the notary were actually double agents, maybe working for Russia. He believes they sabotaged Germany's whole plan at the very last second, making sure those global sovereign rights never transferred to the German state. But here's the kicker. According to this narrative, Germany has been acting as if the transfer did happen ever since. And from the moment Germany believed it had secretly won the world,
The buyer claims an unprecedented and absolutely brutal campaign of persecution was launched against him. The goal was pretty simple: destroy him.
First, they came at him through the courts. We're talking over 1,000 cases brought against him in just a year and a half.
Then came the media. Around 450 press articles were published, all painting him as some kind of bad real estate shark.
And finally, his home. He and his mother were hit with 56 different evictions, which led to total dispossession and repeated homelessness.
I mean, this kind of immense pressure, it basically forced him into a crash course in law. He had to represent himself in hundreds of cases. And during his research, he claims he discovered something truly chilling. His home internet connection was apparently censoring his searches for the term international law. It was only when he used public Wi-Fi that he could start to piece together the real nature of the contract he'd signed.
So, to fight back inside this bizarre new legal reality he found himself in, he took some pretty extraordinary steps. He declared his own sovereign micronations, all based on the territory he legally owned. He founded kingdoms and communities. He even gave himself the title of Professor of Law, which was a legal move that, in a rare court victory, was actually upheld, allowing him to represent himself without a lawyer.
And all of this, it brings us to today, and to a bizarre geopolitical standoff with implications that, if you believe this story, are absolutely staggering.
So this is really the heart of the standoff. You have two completely opposing realities. On one side, there's the buyer, who claims he legally holds all the sovereign rights from that deed. And on the other, you have Germany, allegedly operating under the delusion that it got those rights and is now just preparing for some day X to assert its global power.
The German state's relentless persecution, and he claims this includes illegal imprisonment and torture, is all designed to force him to do one specific thing: sue them in a German court. He believes that the second he sues, he submits to their jurisdiction, and in that one act, he would finally and legally transfer global authority to them. His suffering, he says, is his resistance. It's the only thing stopping Germany from triggering its new world order.
And so this absolutely incredible narrative leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Is this the story of one man's grand delusion, just an elaborate fantasy built around a property dispute gone wrong? Or is it just possible that his silent suffering is, just as he claims, the world's most secret and most unlikely line of defense?